Planning Committee meeting. I'm Councillor Pritchard, Chair of the Committee. There are no scheduled fire drills tonight, so in the event of a fire alarm, please leave the building via the spiral staircase and the main reception door. Once outside, turn left and go to the fire assembly point on Exchange Road. If you're unable to use the stairs, you will be guided by a member of staff to the evacuation lift. This meeting is being live streamed via the Council's YouTube channel. Please note there is no comment function available. The Council is the data controller and will retain the data collected during this webcast. This will be done in accordance with the Council's published data retention policy. Anyone seated in the public gallery should be aware that by entering the room, you are consenting to your image being captured by automated camera system. Recordings will be used for webcasting or training purposes. The meeting agenda is available on the Council website. Around these tables sit the committee members who will be taking decisions on the items before them. Officers of the Council are also in attendance, and I will invite them to introduce themselves now, starting with the lady to my left.
Good evening, I'm Jess Tamplin, Democratic Services Officer.
Good evening, Siraj Chowdhury, Head of Governance, People and Performance.
Good evening, Hamish Walk, Acting Group Manager for Development Management.
Good evening, I'm Mark Robinson, Principal Planning Officer.
Good evening, I'm Clem Smith, I'm the Head of Economy and Planning.
Can I ask, are there any apologies? No, none were saved. Okay, we will now take items 2 and 3 together. I will call upon committee members to declare any interests or lobbying in relation to any of the items. Please also declare if you've visited any of the sites. Councillor Ashraf. Councillor Bidwell.
No lobbying or interests.
Councillor Burgess.
No lobbying, unless I have to declare that I'm a West Sussex County councillor, then there's no interest. And I haven't had a chance to visit the sites, unfortunately. Thank you.
Councillor Hart. Councillor Jaggard.
Good evening. I've not been lobbied. I've no interest to declare. I did pop along to item 5, the old TUI building, but I couldn't get in because it's all fenced off now, but I have visited it previously.
Councillor Khan.
Hi, good evening. I don't have any interest to declare. I've not been lobbied and I've not visited any sites.
Councillor Magali.
Good evening. I have no interest to declare. I have not been lobbied and have not visited any sites.
Councillor Nawaz.
Thanks, Chair. No lobbying declaration to or interest to declare, and no interest and haven't visited the sites. Thank you.
Councillor Patel.
Good evening. I have no interest to declare. I have not been lobbied and have not visited the sites. Thank you.
Councillor Russell.
No interest to declare. Not been lobbied and not visited the sites.
Councillor Yarney.
I have not been lobbied. I have no interest to declare and I have not visited any sites.
Okay, and for my declaration, I have not been lobbied and I have not visited any of the sites and I have no interest in them. I'm going to take a moment to welcome 3 new councillors onto the committee for this month as well. Now we come to the minutes of the last meeting held on 4th of June 2024. Does the committee agree that the minutes are an accurate record of the meeting? We now move on to agenda item 5. CR 2022-0487 NM1 TUI Travel House, Fleming Way, Northgate. Could I ask the planning officer to introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. So this is a non-material amendment application. I'll come on to explain what that is in a second. It relates to a building that is known as TUI Travel House, but it's actually being converted to form the Crawley Innovation Centre. As you can see on the left-hand side, photo, the building has a kind of L-shaped form, and the changes that we'll come on to discuss are primarily in this area to the front of the building, and then relating to some first floor doors at the rear. So this is the block plan for the site. You can see the building here in a kind of L shape. The proposals, as I said, this is a non-material amendment application, and the only reason it's coming before you is because it's been submitted by Crawley Borough Council. The very definition of a non-material amendment application is that it should be something that is basically so small that no one really is going to notice the changes that are proposed to be made. Certainly it's not going to have any significant impact or cause any harm to neighbours, that kind of thing, or be a significant change in design. So the report does set out from the planning practice guidance what a non-material amendment is and how they're dealt with, just for your information really, because this is not the sort of application that you would normally see. But the changes that are proposed, there are changes to parking, to EV parking spaces, a reduction in the size of some doors, and the relocation of a tree which is related to the parking. So you can see on the plan there, the parking spaces that are shown in green are EV, proposed EV car charging spaces. There are 10 of them. When the permission was originally granted, there were there's 12 of them. 12 of them. There were 10, there's now 12. So there's been a slight increase in the number of spaces that will be set up as EV charging spaces. There's been a decrease in the number of passive spaces, which are spaces, EV spaces, where the cabling ducting is basically put in underground, but the charging points and whatever are not provided. They can be provided a bit easier at a later stage. There's a reduction from 20 to 12 passive spaces. In addition, the changes to the spaces and to the related ducting has resulted in the relocation of a tree. So those two trees there, you can see the green circles, one of them was previously over in this location, but because of the proposed ducting, it's been relocated. So that's one of the other changes. And then the final one relates to, let me just go to another drawing, to some slight changes to the size of a first floor balcony door. And even on the elevations, you'll struggle to make it out, but you can hopefully see the cloud shape just there. So those first floor doors have been reduced in width by 30 centimetres. So I mean, on that elevation you would struggle to notice that, but they're about 30 centimetres narrower than was approved. I think that's simply due to manufacturing problems and it being more appropriate to make that smaller door. I think that's probably enough. I think probably if you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but those are the proposed changes. And as I said, that by their very nature, they are minor and fairly insignificant, really. Thank you.
Okay. There are no speakers registered in regard to this item. We now move to the debate. Committee members wishing to speak should raise their hand. The officer will respond to queries one by one. Councillor Jaggard.
Good evening. Hi. Just about the first floor access window. I mean, it's obviously a change from what's there because they're just regular windows at the moment, and this is a particularly access window, presumably because the end user wanted to access at first floor level, and I'm just making sure that they will still be able to do whatever they wanted to do with a, foot, 30 centimetre reduction.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's actually a fire escape window should the need arise. I think it is a kind of emergency. It's not an access in terms of them. It's a first floor level. It's just got a Juliet balcony on it, I think. But I think if the need arose, the fire brigade could get round there and get people out there, I think. But I don't think it's more than that. It's certainly not an access to actually get in and out to anything.
Okay, that's fine. I just sort of thought it was to so that they could get things into the building at that level more easily, but that's not the case then.
No, it's certainly not an access to the building.
Okay, any other committee members? Councillor Burgess.
Thank you. I've probably read it somewhere, but I can't find it. Water neutrality, is this going to be okay for the water neutrality? And also, can we be reassured that the materials they used are not flammable, bearing in mind this recent tragedy that's occurred in London? Thank you.
Water neutrality, I mean, there are no water neutrality issues because there is nothing that the conversion of the building itself didn't need a planning application. So the previous application wasn't actually to create the innovation centre, it was for these minor alterations to the building, really. So water neutrality is not an issue because nothing that actually requires planning permission involves a water connection. The water connection to the building is already there and planning permission for a change of use was not required. So that's fine. In terms of materials, well, I mean, the only material on the building is the UPVC doors, is the doors on those first floor doors that we just talked about. Sorry, Clem has just given me a bit of information on what they're used for, Councillor Jagger. They are used to potentially for deliveries of certain items into the building.
Thank you, Clem. I did seem to recall that as being at our previous, when it came to previously. Thank you.
Okay, any further comments from my colleagues? Okay, all committee members have had the opportunity to speak, so we move to the vote. The recommendation is to permit, subject to the amended conditions set out in the report. As the Chair, I will move the recommendation. Can I ask the Vice Chair to second, please?
Seconded.
Okay, can I ask for a show of hands for all those for the application? And that's unanimous. So application CR20220487 NM1 TUI Travel House Fleming Way has been permitted subject to the amended conditions set out in the report. We now move on to agenda item 6, CR20230450 TPO 116 Drake Road, Tilgate. Can I ask the officer to introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. So this is a Crawley Borough Council application to undertake works to 2 trees to the rear of 116 Drake Road. Just see them on the plan here. They're right at the back of the garden. 2 mature oak trees. Sorry. As you can see on the photographs, it's the house here that's set back with the smaller tree in the front, and it's the 2 trees in the middle. Tree 1 is in the middle here, and tree 2 is the one on the left-hand side, a bit further towards the house. There's another photograph of it there. Since the application has been submitted, the description has been amended during the course of application from felling the 2 trees to pollarding both the trees to a point 0.5 metres above the previous pollard points. This would result in an approximate reduction of between sort of 2 to 4 metres off of each branch of the trees. As I said before, as we see in the photographs, they're mature oak trees and they're along a former field boundary. And they have significant amenity, as you can see, as they form a backdrop to the development in the area and can be viewed from many different directions. Whilst Crawley Borough Council originally wanted to fell the trees, and a structural engineer's report identified some damage to the nearby CBC council house at 116, no evidence has actually been provided that actually proves the trees are the cause of the damage. So usually this would be in the form of sort of reports that show cyclical movement during the summer when the water uptake of the trees is greater. maybe undertaking some investigative works of drains to show whether there are roots or other issues with those, and even normally digging some holes and identifying like roots from the holes themselves that may be impacting a tree. So as it stands, there isn't enough evidence for the local planning authority to determine that the trees are the cause of the subsidence that there is in the house. However, it is considered the trees could be reduced in accordance with the structural engineer's recommendation. It was the structural engineer that recommended reducing them back. And this would reduce the potential impacts of the trees on the house. It would, in the short term, reduce the amenity of the trees, but would allow them to recover and then continue to provide amenity to the area. So they would again provide this lovely green backdrop to the development. Just as an aside, if further evidence in the future is provided regarding the impacts of trees on the building, then this would be considered on its own merits at that time. But at this time, that's not the case. The application is therefore recommended to be consented according to the amended description. Thank you.
There are no speakers in regard to this item. We now move to the debate. Committee members wishing to speak should raise their hand. The officer will respond to queries one by one. Councillor Burgess.
So these trees, they haven't got a TPO on them, I presume, at the moment. Well, I have read in here, but are we saying that we're going to reduce the trees rather than remove them, which is a very good idea, by the way? I am concerned that we have trees in gardens and people are not encouraged to get them regularly, surgery on them regularly, and they do grow out of control. Is there anything the planning people can do to encourage the residents, particularly tenants, to ensure their trees don't grow unnecessarily out of control? I'm saying this, somebody's got 6 trees in their garden, as you know. So it's so important that every year you have them reduced, because this would control the roots and it will prevent any problem to the drain. So I'm just wondering where we will pollard them, they will grow again, and as long as they keep their eye on them and keep them well maintained, I don't see there'd be a problem in the future, personally. So it's not really a question there, is there? Sorry.
There's a little bit of a question, yeah. So the trees are subject to a TPO, they are protected, which is why the application's with us. It's an application made by the council, sort of on behalf of the householder to a certain extent. The ultimate responsibility for the trees lies with the owner of the trees. Now, we don't get involved in the relationships, from the planning side, relationships between Crawley Homes and their tenants, but this one has been submitted effectively on behalf of them by Crawley Homes to undertake works to the trees. Hopefully that explains the situation. But planning will not get involved in telling people to cut trees back or involved with that. That is their responsibility. That's the responsibility of the owner, potentially their tenant and everybody else. So.
I think I was just taking this opportunity to advertise the fact that trees need to be maintained by the people whose property they're on. Thank you.
Okay, do I have any other further questions from my colleagues? Okay, all committee members have had their opportunity to speak, so we'll move on to the vote. The recommendation is to consent subject to the conditions set out in the report. As Chair, I will move the recommendation. Can I ask the Vice Chair to second, please?
I do second it.
Can I have a show of hands for all those for the recommendation? That's unanimous. Application CR 2023-0450 TPO 116 Drake Road, Tilgate. Consent subject to the conditions set out in the report. Move on to agenda item 7, Crawley Borough Council Tree Preservation Order, Crawley College, 02/2024. Can I ask the planning officer to give us the report?
Thank you very much, Chair. So this this report is actually to consider the confirmation of a tree preservation order due to an objection from the college themselves to that order. As a bit of background, it should be noted that the TPO was made during the determination of a planning application CR 2023-0734, if you will, which was for the erection of a new Institute of Technology building. And this does form phase one of a larger proposed redevelopment of the college site. While no trees are actually proposed to be removed as part of this application, the TPO has proposed, the trees proposed in this order were identified as having amenity on the site and to the wider area, and in order to have some level of protection over them, the tree preservation order was served on the 6th of March 2024. The details of the tree preservation order are on the effectively the map on the left here. It comprises a number of different trees. T1 is a prune in the top right-hand corner. G1 next to the county footpath on the sort of right-hand side there is a group of 3 silver birch. T2, there's oak tree behind the building, not highly visible from public locations due to other trees along the footpath. That's the same with T3, which is further to the south near the roundabout. T5 is one of a pair of oak trees near the roundabout, and then there's group G. Where is it? G3, yes, which is in front of the building at the south there. T4 is an oak tree towards the west side of the site, just set back from the highway. There's an image of that here. There are some pictures of most of the trees up there. And then T6 is a rather attractive willow sort of in front of the tower. That's quite close to the, almost opposite the town hall here, the roundabout up there. So an objection to this TPO has been received from, on behalf of Chichester College Group that operates or owns the site. It specifically objects to the group at T2, the group at G2, which comprises of 4 oak trees in the middle of the site. This picture in the top left-hand corner is the trees. It really comprises a sort of larger oak tree on the left-hand side, then 3 smaller trees towards the east. Now, the objective is seeking an alteration to the order to remove the 3 trees to the east from the order and retain the larger oak to the front. And this is the one at the western end as T7. The objection makes reference to the retention of the 3 trees would restrict the future development of the site, and that this would effectively be contrary to the agreed master plan for the site. Now, there is an agreed master plan for the site, which is looking to develop the site overall to both enhance education facility and potentially develop mixed-use development on other parts of the site. And I think, as you can see in the back of the report, there's an illustration of that, and that shows effectively the potentially second phase of development, which may involve some development where these 3 trees are. So at this time, the trees in G2 do have a cohesive group value, as you can see from the photograph. It's a little bit altered from this now because the structure in front, that metal frame structure, is now much larger. And of course, this will alter when that building goes in. So you won't see them from this view, but you will certainly see them from College Road to the west. So they provide a positive impact upon the amenity of the area. If they're not protected, they could be removed without notice. Any future planning application, or application to take works to the trees, including phase 2 of the college redevelopment, should consider desirability of retaining these trees. And this would be considered as a part of the planning balance in any future application. It doesn't preclude an application for their removal or anything like that. But they could, if they're not protected, be removed at any time, and then they wouldn't be a consideration of the application. So the TPO does not preclude development on the site. It does give the council some control over the trees in the interests of amenity. And as such, at this time, it's recommended that the tree preservation order is confirmed without amendment proposed. Thank you.
There are no speakers in regard to this item. We'll move to the debate. Committee members wishing to speak should raise their hand. The officer will respond to queries one by one. Councillor Jaggard.
I didn't realise I was first, sorry.
That's all right.
On reflection, I did visit this site when we had the other application back in March. So, but at the moment you can't get in there, so I hadn't visited it this time. These trees, particularly the oak trees, are very significant. They're very obvious in a lovely line. And I'm trying to see on the old maps that we have whether they are actually historic field boundaries and things, because they are very in a line. And I think it's absolutely vital that we do put the TPO, confirm the TPO on all of those trees. It doesn't stop the college doing work on them. It just makes sure that they are not cut down, because that would be really significant, particularly those four. I would just like to ask, you mentioned T5. It's a pair of something or others. I can't remember what type of tree. T5, a pair of oaks. Is it both oaks that are intended to be part of the TPO, or just one of those oaks at T5? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jaggard. It is only one of the oak trees there. So the one on the left-hand side is, I think, in a poorer condition. The one on the right-hand side, closer to the roundabout, is the one that the order is to be placed on.
Councillor Burgess.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Jaggard about the trees. I think they are part of the historic boundary that we had, along with the well-known Telford oak, but we'll scope that's different. I'm surprised that we're not TPOing both trees. You say that one is of poor condition. Is that, would a little bit of TLC improve it, or is it sort of really on its last legs? Because oak trees are really important. They are for the conservation. We have to, the animals that live in the oak tree, they are beginning to disappear, or the insects, the birds, everything. For the sake of our future survival, we need our oak trees to grow and develop into very old oaks. So is there any way we can put TPOs on both those oaks, or is one of really too bad to do that? And secondly, can we reassure us that the TPOs on the other three oaks will be firm and strong, that they will have to seek firm permission before they do anything to the trees?
Thank you, Councillor Burgess. So in relation to the first part of the question, the trees are protected for their amenity, so their wider amenity. Now, the oak that isn't protected, which is the one on the left here, does have poor amenity, it's got quite severe. Next time we walk past it, if you have a look at the canopy, it's in a very poor condition. It does not have a high level of amenity, and that's the reason why it isn't protected. That's the primary reason we protect trees, not for, I'm afraid, not for other purposes. And that one is not in a particularly good condition. No, that's right. And I think the second point was in regard to the protection of the trees. So the tree preservation order gives the trees protection from undertaking unauthorised works. Any works that are proposed would either, if they just want to undertake works to the tree, would come through the local planning authority as an application to undertake works to protected trees. But if a planning permission is granted, that will take precedence over a tree preservation order. So if an application does come in, and say, for example, things are weighed up in the planning balance, we have to look at it that way. And for example, in the planning balance, the trees are not retained for whatever reason, then the planning permission would allow them to be removed. But that's not something for consideration here. This is only to look at this stage, protecting the trees as they stand at the moment. Anything in the future is something that would be, if say, viewed on its own merits by committee members at that time.
Councillor Bidwell.
Thank you. So you mentioned that some of these some of these developments, phase 2 did you say? Do we actually know what they might be looking to do as part of this and how the trees could affect this at all?
So the letter that's provided with the letter that's provided at the end of the report does actually give an indicative idea of the overall master plan for the site. Now that's not hard and fast, but it is something that has been agreed by the council in conjunction with the owners of the site as a potential way forward to redevelop the site, and that includes the north end of the site potentially being for mixed use housing as well. It's a much wider master plan for the whole site. If you do look at the drawings as provided, so I'm going to ask people to refer to their paper copies. Then on the drawings indicated as number 5 and number 3 on the drawing are sort of potentially where a building might be going where the oak trees are.
Sorry, can I ask which page numbers we're talking here?
No idea. It's this one.
Thank you.
That helps, sorry. So the letter's attached. There's a drawing which is fairly indicative of this part of the master plan, which includes the sort of wider redevelopment of the Crawley College site. It's also shown on the final sort of axonometric drawing as well, just as an idea. But the master plan is not something for consideration here. The buildings as erected would be subject to a planning application, and we will look at that on it. That needs to be considered on its merits. This is only at this stage about the trees. So,
Councillor Russell.
It's just a quick observation. It just seems to me that there's an eminent sense to this, because it puts us in the driving seat. It means that any subsequent application that comes in, we then, they could propose removing the trees, but it actually gives us the power to stop that. So I just think this seems very, very sensible, and there's certainly a cross-floor support of trying to retain the trees. An observation.
Councillor Patel.
Yeah, so I agree with that observation that you just made. I guess my question is, as part of that phase 2 plan, and it's not something that I quite understand, is that something that was brought to the planning committee, and was that considered? Because when I read the letter, it seems like that they have this plan, and it was an agreed plan, and now this TPO may affect that plan. Or am I reading that wrong? Thank you.
So there was an earlier planning application in 2019, I think was considered by the committee, and that included a Section 106 agreement, and part of the Section 106 agreement was for a phased master plan for the whole of the college site. And I think this is the thing, the drawing we're seeing is just an excerpt of the part of the site that that applies to the trees that the objection are to. But the overall master plan applies to the whole site, including the tower to the north, the whole lot. The master plan was submitted to the council as part of the Section 106 agreement. It has been agreed by the council, and I mean, the applicants, the owners of the site, are working with the council based on the master plan for sort of future development and what happens on the site overall. I think want to be a bit more positive about them. This is not just they've decided to do something or anything like that. They have been working with the council, and the master plan was undertaken with. And it was agreed by, I think it was it delegated approval. Yeah, it was a delegated approval. It's not an adopted document of the council. It is an agreed document. There's a slight difference in the wording there, so it doesn't form a part of, say, the local plan. It hasn't been through a kind of formal consultation with the public and things like that. It was part of the original 2019 planning permission for development of part one of the buildings on the site, wasn't it? hope that just explains a little bit of the background to it. So, even as the master plan develops, we will have further applications. They will be made. There will be consultation on those. They will undoubtedly, I imagine, come to the committee for determination purely just due on their size, I should think. So undoubtedly will be majors. But at this stage, this is we're just looking at the trees within this tree preservation order. Okay, thanks.
For clarification, should an application come from the college covering the whole of the site, which in future wish to remove one or more of these trees as part of that application, that could still be given permission, but it would be weighted and there might be a commitment upon them to plant trees elsewhere or do something about that, but it doesn't preclude any future applications. It just becomes a consideration in a future application if that were the case. Is that correct?
That's absolutely right.
Councillor Jaggard.
Sorry to come back on this. It's basically agreeing with both of what Councillor Russell said and you. I can remember a while back, because it was at the corner of Station Hill, where a developer basically chopped all the trees down and then said, "Oh, there are no trees on the site." And I think this a TPO stops that from happening. It puts us in control. And I'm not suggesting in any way that Crawley College or Chishi's College or anybody on this occasion is a bit of a dodgy developer, but it does, a TPO would stop them from just randomly chopping down trees and then saying, well, there's nothing to see here type of thing. And it puts us in the driving seat, which I think is absolutely right, that we should have that control on such an important site and obvious from so many viewpoints. Thank you.
Councillor Nawaz.
Thanks, Chair. I agree with most of the things said over here, and I agree with my colleagues as well. But if you read the letter, there is, I always think putting this TPO is a very complicated process, and we made it very difficult. Given that how trusted partner we have in Crawley College, and a master plan has been discussed for years and years, and how come we're not able to discuss this issue with them beforehand and just come up with the TPO? I can understand their letter clearly says it's not been raised before. I don't think so there's intention to remove trees, but I think given that circumstances, this could have been raised with them beforehand, given the master plan has been discussed and agreed. Seems like from reading the letter, that is not the case. They've just been put on them, and they have to agree, I think, on that.
I was going to answer that because I dealt with the original STEM building application, which is the one that's been built, which triggered the master plan. Crawley College have been advised of the importance of the trees in every single application and pre-application discussion they've had with us since that time. So they are certainly aware of the importance of the trees. As Mark said, I don't think there's any doubt that I think they see the importance of the trees. Well, I don't think this is a kind of us and them situation, but they have been fully aware of our view of the importance of the trees throughout all the planning that has gone on so far. So, and it is part of the master plan. It's not that the master plan looks to just remove trees. I think the issue with the master plan is the whole point of it was we had the STEM building application. We knew that the college were looking to kind of move their floor space around and eventually free up the northern end of the site, potentially for housing. And we felt it was appropriate that was done on a master plan basis rather than through a sort of series of fairly random applications, one after the other. So the college worked with us to do that. So I think the whole process is fine, but the college have certainly been aware of our view that those trees are important through the whole process of the last 4 or 5 years, I guess.
I'd just like also to add that the tree preservation order is on the trees that are considered to have amenity. As we noted as well, there are certain trees, say that one next to T5, that we're not looking to protect, and there are others around the site as well. So it is specific to those that are considered to be important, rather than a kind of blanket coverage of all the trees on the site. So it is directed at the things that are important. So, thanks.
Thanks, Hamish. Thanks, Mark, as well. I totally agree with that. It's given us in a good position when we negotiate for future planning applications. And we have seen over here in this planning committee when it comes to it, there is a way, trees, even though they may be protected, can be moved as well. But given that the communication with the trusted partner like Crawley College, and they saying that it's not been discussed with them, it does show we might need to improve our communication a bit better with our partners. And I think that's the important. We've seen this in TPO when it comes to even housing ones, and people struggle to understand. They're not being given any chance or anything other than just to confirm. So that's my view. But even if Crawley College is saying in the latter clearly, I think we need to look at it, the communication side.
I think it's worth saying, and the committee have heard this before, the reason that we serve a tree preservation order without notifying the owner of the land is because the tree could disappear. Until it's protected, it could disappear. So that's why we do it the way we do. We then have I think it's 6-month period.
Yes.
All the orders confirmed. So there's a 6-month kind of effectively like a consultation period. The owner of the land can put in their objections as has happened here. And it then comes before committee to be confirmed or not confirmed. So that is the process, but there is a very sound reason why we serve the order without letting the applicant know a week before or something like that, because in some cases the trees would disappear.
We've certainly had occasions in the past where very important trees have been felled because we weren't able to put orders on in time. Because people found out that type of thing. So, yes, unfortunately, that is the case. It is invariably people aren't warned about it. Sorry.
Okay, any other comments or questions from my colleagues? Okay, all committee members have had the opportunity to speak, so we'll move on to the vote. The recommendation is to confirm the TPO without modification. As the chair, I will move the recommendation. Can I ask the vice chair to second, please?
I second it.
Okay, can I have a show of hands for the recommendation? All those against? And those abstaining? 2 abstentions. Okay, application number, the tree preservation order at Crawley College has been confirmed without modification. Now moving on to agenda item 8, Crawley Borough Council tree preservation order, trees to the front of 47 Blackwater Lane from April this year. Can you please present the report?
Thank you, Chair. So this is very similar to the previous application. This application is to consider whether we should confirm a tree preservation order at 47 Blackwater Lane after we receive an objection to the order. The current order is to protect 3 oak trees to the front of the property. They're in a group there along Blackwater Lane. The photographs sort of indicate the trees. They don't really come across quite as well as I was expecting. They look better on the screen than they do up there, I'm afraid. But the trees are these 3 trees here and along there. And this is from the other direction, so it's this group of trees here, just to the left of that van. So these trees are part of the trees along the road. They give Blackwater Lane, they help to give Blackwater Lane its sylvan character. It's designated as an area of special local character, the trees and the landscaping being highlighted as one of the important features. The trees have, as you can see from the photographs, significant amenity value along the front of the road. Set out in the reports, the trees were subject to a provisional TPO on the 5th of April after we received an inquiry about their status from someone that was seeking to fell them to increase the parking area at the front of a care home. The objection received the TPO from a neighbour on the grounds set out in the report. In response, it should be noted that it had not been Can't read my own writing sometimes. So if previously there hadn't been a risk to the trees, then there would have been no real justification or reason for us to seek to protect them. So it's one of the objections. If the trees were to be felled to make way for the parking, landscaping, and there's no tree preservation order, then they could just have been done. The amenity would be permanently lost. We would have no opportunity or mechanism to protect the trees or have them replaced in the future, because if with no protection, the trees could be just removed and there's no comeback. So there would be, if the trees aren't protected, effectively there would be no opportunity to work with the resident or the community to have replacements. That's what they're saying, we want these to be felled at the moment. They've been assessed by the council's arboriculture officer and are considered to be healthy. Issues with the dead branches can be dealt with by the owner. If they are dead, the branches can be removed without an application. If there's some damage or other nature of issues with the trees that might make them dangerous, potentially, then at worst case scenario, they can be dealt with at a 5-day notice. So they need to notify us, they give us 5-day notice. And if they don't get any comments back from us, we don't object, then they can undertake the works. Or by the grant of a consent through the submission of an application. The requirement potentially undertake works to the tree, trees connected with maybe works to the drive may also require consent too. The order is therefore to protect the 3 trees without amendment, and it's recommended that the TPO be confirmed as set out in the report. Thanks.
Thank you. There were no speakers in regard to this item, so we move to the debate. Committee members wishing to speak should raise their hands. Councillor Burgess.
Just a point of clarification. Mark, did you say that the dead branches could be removed from the tree without approaching us if it was TPO'd? Could that mean that, would that lead to people removing branches saying they're dead when they're not?
So removing dead branches wouldn't require a consent, because potentially they might fall, could be dangerous. Removing live branches would potentially be a criminal offence. So we do have cases where live branches are removed, and we will investigate all of them, and it's quite obvious the difference between removal of a dead branch and a live one. You can see from the evidence of what's left on the tree. But again, each of those be dealt with on their merits.
And can I just follow on? So the trees that they're in the property, you say they're on the roadside, aren't they? I can't see the picture very clearly. Is that on the roadside, not in the garden? So is that just, do we have to go around and make sure the trees are well trimmed? I know residents come to me quite often and ask for trees that are on the roadside belonging to council to have the branches trimmed, what have you. Is that a different argument because they're not TPO'd?
It is a different argument. These trees are on private land in what is effectively the front garden of the house, the nursing home. They're not on highways land, they're just inside the boundary. So therefore, the obligations for the maintenance of those lies with the landowner.
Okay, any other colleagues wish to ask any questions or comment? Okay, all committee members have had the opportunity to speak, so we will move on to the vote. The recommendation is to confirm the TPO without modification. As Chair, I will move the recommendation. Can I ask the Vice Chair to second, please?
I second it.
Can I ask for a show of hands for all those for the recommendation? All those against the recommendation? And any abstentions? One abstention. The Crawley Borough Council Tree Preservation Order, trees at the front of 47 Blackwater Lane, has been confirmed. Moving on to the section 106 Monies, quarter 4 23-24 and quarter 1 24-25. The report provides an update on section 106 Monies. Do the committee members wish to make any comments or ask any questions on this report? Okay, does Clem want to say anything on the report at all? Not that you have to, or just inviting you to make any comment if you wish to.
Not particularly, Chair. Obviously, there's been some very minor movements in terms of the balance at the end of the 2 quarterly periods compared to the start of the 2 quarterly periods. I think that's really the bottom line, as it were, as set out in the report.
Thank you. Are there no recommendations? The report has been noted. There is no supplemental agenda, so the business of the committee has concluded, so the meeting is closed at 20:21. Thank you all for coming.